What's up everybody? We are back for another tutorial. This time it's basically a sequel to last week's how to take off late. Now we're going to look at how to ride heavy barrels versus how to ride softer barrels. You're going to approach them differently and I'm going to break it down for you. Now you might be wondering, why am I doing another tutorial back to back? Well, there's no waves again this week, and you guys left such a positive response on that last video. I was honestly just blown away and figured I'll take advantage of there being no surf and jump into another one. This way, between this video and the last one, should cover pretty much everything you need to know about barrel riding, from takeoff to coming out. So with that being said, I'll quit rambling, let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to look at is trying to ride high and tight barrels, or just softer barrels in general, barrels that aren't throwing out all the way. What you need to do in these cases is you have to stay up the face of the wave. You can't let yourself drop down, at least when you're setting your line through the tube. As soon as you start going down, you're going to go into the lip. I'm going to go ahead and just jump into this first clip, start breaking this down, what you need to do, where you need to position yourself, how your feet should be, and mainly how your shoulders should be. So here we go. All right, so here we have our first example. Late takeoff under it, knife up the face. This wave is not throwing. As you can see, it's a rather, as we say in the surf world, an almondy shaped barrel. It's gonna be high and tight. So I'm making my bottom turn here mid-face. I don't wanna go to the bottom and get caught by this thing. So I make bottom turn mid-face and I get up underneath of it. Now watch my hands. I got one hand, my back hand behind me and my front hand pointed down the line. Well, I wanna get further up the face compared to where I am right here. So I'm going to lift my shoulders up and start hugging the wall of that wave. See how both my arms are pointed at the face of this wave? I'm parallel to the face and I'm on my toes really hard. You can actually see where my back foot is right above my grip pad. I don't want to have my foot further back because that's going to put me less on this rail. The further back I am, the more weight I have on the whole tail, compared to if I'm on the rails like I am right here. I'm basically only engaging this rail because I only want to ride up on this portion of the wave. So as we go through it, you'll see my arms start to dip down. That's because, let's face it, gravity and the way the wave's shaped are fighting against what you want to do. They're trying to force you down the face. So you can only hold this position for so long. You're going to hang on there as long as you can, and then as you start dipping back down, you'll bring your shoulders and then go back into another little pump to hold that line again. And you'll just keep doing this as you go through the barrel. So here I brought my hands down and then I went into another pump and I'm pulling back up. Watch, I extend my body and I pull my legs up, and then here my arms come back down. I'm going into like a little bit heavier of a section. You can see this right here, it starts bottoming out. And so my shoulders square back up with the exit, but this barrel's about to get even tighter. So I'm gonna pull up. Here I go, moving my hands back towards the face of the wave and my shoulders. One little pump there, and then I'd square off with the exit, and then right here I'd try and squeeze it again. And at this point the wave's, it's a weird wave, it's pinching, so it's trying to bottom out and pinch at the top at the same time. And so I'm doing a little bit of both as far as trying to stay up on the face of the wave and also keep my shoulders in a position where I'm not going to slide out or catch a rail. As we keep going through, I get one more little pump in, and then right here I start eyeing my exit. And my shoulders are turning. I'm opening my shoulders from being up against the face of the wave to out towards the exit. And I'm gonna start riding down. The key to riding these high and tight barrels is most of the time they're gonna pinch. So what you wanna do is as you're exiting, whether it's front side or back side, you wanna come up high and then right when you're planning to exit, start going down the face. And that way when the lip lands on your shoulders, you're already moving with it. If you just keep going down the line and the wave hits you from the side, you're either gonna slide out or you're just gonna fall over. Here we have another wave. I'm gonna take off and set my rail straight down the line. This wave's a little mellower, a little cleaner and easier to ride. So as I set my rail and start going down the line, look at my shoulders. I'm hugging the wall, I'm doing a little bit of a stall. Notice my back foot still above my grip pad, my front foot leaning really hard in. That's because I want all my weight on this rail. I don't want it on the tail to where I could drift down the face. I want to hug the face. And so I'm using my rail to do that and my inside fin. And I'm gonna hold this position because I want to stay high. This wave's not gonna barrel hard. So I'll keep my shoulders kind of towards the face of the wave, parallel to it. I'll ride through this and hold. And then right as I'm coming out, you see my shoulders are still kind of in that same position, maybe opening a little bit, because it did this last bit right here, opened up some. But they're still holding until right here when I'm ready to come out. And notice how my shoulders completely open up. Now I'm perpendicular to the wave. So basically wherever your shoulders are pointing is going to be where your body's going. So if your shoulders are pointed at the face, you're going to be hugging that rail and holding. If your shoulders are pointed, towards the exit, you're going to be just going straight down the line. If your shoulders are pointed towards, the flats, you'll be going that way. And so depending on the shape of the barrel, you're going to be going in a complete range of motions to hold your rail, set your line, and keep from hitting the lip or going too high and whatnot. Here we have a backside example. I wind up right here for this no-handed pump, and I throw my arms and my body weight up the face and then bring my board up with it, and I go into a grab rail. This wave's breaking really high. Look where I'm riding on this wave. I'm in the middle of the wave. As I go into it, watch me duck my head right here. I ducked my head down. That's one thing, you always want to be aware of where the lip is. And a lot of times it happens on late takeoffs or just trying to get up high and tight. You need to duck your head. If you have to, you don't always have to, just be aware of where that lip's coming and what you need to do to get underneath of it. So here I duck down and I get underneath the lip, and watch for this position I'm in. So you can see I'm kind of straight over my knee, and my back leg is knocked in, almost drop knee position. My front foot's almost facing towards the nose, or pretty much is. And I'm leaning over my knee. Now watch as I want to go higher and hold that line. I lean forward really hard. Now what that leaning forward does is it keeps my weight over my knee and over my front rail. Backside, because you can pull on your rail, that's the only way you can do that. You don't have the advantage of being able to use your toes like you do front side, and you can't lean on your heels the same way you can on your toes. So I'm grab rail leaning forward, going into this section. You'll see my nose dip down, and then right there, look at the angle of that. I'm starting to do a little pump, and I pull up. Want to stay high, remember, we don't want to get down in this zone, because once you get down in the bottom of that barrel, the way the lip is shaped, you don't fit there. So you need to stay up high where you have headroom. So I did that little pump, came up high, I came down again, and I'm going back up, and I'm just doing all these little pumps to keep myself up the face, because like I said, gravity wants to push you down, so you're fighting against it. You see how hard I'm leaning forward, and then right here I start bracing for my exit, and I turn. That last pump out the barrel, you always want to go as high as you can and then drop back down, and that's what will allow you to go through that lip. If you try and hold on otherwise, it's likely to knock you off. Our last backside example, I get pretty contorted in this one. So as I'm taking off, I do a pump up the face, and right here, look at this position I'm in. I stall, and then as I'm pumping up the face, look at this position right there. I'm trying to get super high because I know that I'm deep, and I want to come up the face to go over that foam ball. So look at where my weight is. My head is over my knee, but my knee is leaned out here. I'm pulling really hard with my hand here to try and hold myself on this line up this way. I don't want to be down here. So as we go into it, the foam ball is hitting underneath of me there. And right here, I should start coming off of it. And yeah, you can see I'm on the foam ball. I'm less leaning. See, I overcompensated as I came through that section so that when I got here, I'd be back to where I want to be. And I'm leaned back over my knee, front foot on the rail, pulling on my rail with my backhand. And this portion I get to kind of cruise through, and then I do one more pump up high right there. And then up here I start ducking down because I don't want this lip to catch me. Think the exit here is only this big. I can't be anywhere down here or the lip's gonna hit me. So that last pump up the face, just a little pull. And I did it by leaning really hard over my knee, over the edge of my board, and pulling to ride up. And then right when I get here, I can let go because I made it through, and I'm out. So as we saw those examples, front side, you're gonna wanna hug the face of the wave with your shoulders pointed towards it. And then backside, you're gonna be grabbing your rail, and you're kind of wanting to do the same thing, but opposite. Obviously you're holding, so you can't do but so much. It's gonna look different, it's gonna feel completely different. But bottom line, you wanna try and hug all your weight over your rail up the face. Let's take a look at some of the types of waves you can get by applying this technique, and then we'll get into the heavy stuff. All right, it is time to talk about how to ride a heavy barrel. And when I mean a heavy barrel, I mean anything that's square and boxed out. It doesn't even necessarily have to have the thickest lip, but just that really square, short transition face. Now, as we talked about in that last section, your shoulders are going to be hugging the face for high and tight barrels. Well, for this, do not do that whatsoever. The main thing is you need to have a lot of your weight on your back foot, and you need to have your shoulders squared off towards the exit, if not facing out. And that's what we're going to show you here in a second. So instead of just rambling on about it, let's dive into the clips. So here we have one of the heaviest waves of my life. And that isn't because of the size, but because of the lip. Look at the face of this wave. Like a quarter or 1/3 of this wave is face. The rest is lip. That's pretty psychotic. And so this is just an example to show you of how hard you need to work in the position we're going to get in to ride heavy waves. This is one of the wildest examples I have. You see my foot, I'm completely on my toes. Nothing is touching my rail there but my toes. I'm on my pad and my front foot is angled forward hard. All my weight is over my back knee and I'm honestly leaning, let's go back here a little bit. I'm honestly leaning front hand behind me. Look at this position, leaning behind me. I'm basically almost leaning backwards like this. Now that is to get all of my weight over my back foot. You can't do that like this. If you're like this or even this, some of your weight is transitioning to your front foot and your heels. If you get into this position, it transitions all your weight to your back foot on your toes. And that is everywhere that it needs to be to ride a wave like this. Now this next wave here is a more realistic version of what you guys are gonna be riding. So here we have a wave, I'm pumping into it, it's bottoming out and getting heavy. You see me doing pumps. Notice as I go down the line, we'll rewind it, I do a big pump and then a smaller pump and a smaller pump. And that's because the wave gets so steep right here, you can only pump but so much. There's only so much wave face for your board to fit in. And even on a bigger wave, it doesn't really change that much. So on really heavy waves, your pumps need to be super small and minute. You want to stay on your back foot, on your toes still, same scenario. But the pumping is just very, very small. And even if it isn't much, every little bit counts sometimes. Let's start here. As I pump in, notice my arms again. I'm going back into that position where my shoulders are open towards the flats and towards kind of this way, I guess, but nowhere near pointed at the face or the exit. And then I come around as I'm going into this section. I'm on my toes. Look, my back foot is pretty much at the corner of the pad. And I'm on my toes and I do a little right here. You see my nose pointing down. And then right here as I'm going in, I lift up. And when I lift up there, I start leaning back because this thing's gonna explode. The foam ball is gonna shoot up and you want your board to be angled up so that when the foam ball shoots up, you go over it. Come out. Now here's a GoPro shot for you guys to see what I'm talking about. You see that pump, you see my back hand here coming around and in front of me, and I have no idea where my front hand is. It's likely way back behind me. And this wave was sucking up so hard. And then right here, it's bottoming out the most. And basically the more my hand points, like a moment like here, the more my back hand is all the way out here, the heavier the wave is, and the more I'm leaning back on my back toes. And then right here, I start transitioning out of that steeper part into this more rideable section. So you see my hands come around, I'm pointed towards the exit, bracing for that foam ball as well. And then hang on and go back into this steep part here. And you see me leaning on my toes again. And here's one quick instance that's a little bit different. It's a heavy wave, but the thing starts out a little bit high and tight. So look, you see me pull up, see my hands? The wave's not super heavy here, but it's gonna get super heavy right here. So my hands are pointed towards the exit. And look, right here, I squeeze in that one little pump and pull them up to be high over that foam ball. Because as this thing gets wide, that foam ball is going to eat it up. Right there, I'm just on top of the foam ball. And then you see, look, my hands and my shoulders are pointed more this way. And then as I start going into that heavier section, they start angling out this way. And then once I get to this point, I'm in the clear. I can ride out. Now here's our backside example. Late takeoff, do a pump. But look, watch. I don't pump high. I just pull forward. You see that? My pump didn't even really go up the face. I went from here to there. It's more about pumping and throwing your weight forward. And so as I'm in this position, Backside, you do not, compared to the high and tight wave, you do not want to lean into it. You want to keep your weight over your knee, over your front of your board. Basically, all your weight is right through here, and you're pulling with your rail, and it's more just a balancing act to keep that nose up. So you got to really keep it nice and level. As you see here, I'm kind of doing that. Wave gets a little steeper, the board angles down, and then I level it back out right there. I'm basically just, holding my position over the board like that. You want to hold, like I said, your weight over you, and then on a wave that's even heavier than that, you're just going to take that and transition it back a little bit and a little bit just to hold up. So we drive through, we keep holding that position, go over the foam ball, and then look, same thing. My shoulders were kind of pointed. I used my hand to point towards the exit. My shoulders were pointed out. And then right here, once I was ready to come out, you see me turn and I start making my way for the exit. Here's a similar instance of pumping into one. Take off, get one big pump, and then grab the rail. And then it's the same thing. I keep my weight over my knee, over the deck of my board. I'm not leaning over towards the face of the wave. I'm not leaning back on my back foot. I'm keeping weight centered over my board to drive through that barrel. So while heavy waves are really difficult to ride, and it's more just that they're intimidating, it's all about staying in the bottom part of the wave. Whatever you do, you can't go high, and you don't want to do a pump up the face because you can't come back down. You want to stay low, do your pumps forward instead of up and down, just taking off, and once you're at the bottom, doing little adjustments, both front side and back side, to get through those sections. The main thing backside is keeping your shoulders towards the exit. Front side, you can have a whole different array of angles that you can be to put your weight because you're not limited holding onto your rail. But backside, you want your shoulders pointed towards the exit and hold that position. Anything towards this way and you're going over, and anything towards the face and you're going to dig into it and go up. Now that we've touched on that, let's take a look at some waves you can get by applying this technique. So we've looked at both heavy barrels and softer barrels, high and tight. Now sometimes you're dealing with a wave that starts out heavy and gets high and tight and you have to make that adjustment, or vice versa. It starts out high and tight and then you go into the heavy section. So let's take a look at breaking down how to mix those two techniques. Now here is the best example I could give you of applying all those techniques at once. We take off, it's heavy. So look, you see my hands open up. Like this, my front hand starts going back behind me and my back hand starts coming in front. It's heavy right there because I'm going into this. And then as I'm coming out, I turn my shoulders. Obviously I don't get to show you, but I turned my shoulders and now I'm facing the wave because I'm coming out and I'm wanting to slow down. And so all my weight's on my back toes and my arms pulling on the face of the wave so I can slow down. And then as I start to come out, I'm getting hit by the wave, but you can see I'd brought my arm back around to ride out of that. But then as I'm riding out of it and it gets hollow, right here it starts getting soft again and I don't want to come out. So watch this right here. I go back in, I'm in this position where I'm kind of facing down the line and then I'm ready to slow down. And so right here I turn, watch my foot come up. My foot's a little flatter and then right there my foot goes onto my toes so I can put my pressure here. And right when it gets soft enough, I start stalling and I can stall through that section. Let's play through this in real time so you can see what happens. As I come out, I kick into a stall. Now watch my body move as I come out of this one. I come out right here and then boom, drop into the stall. It's a real quick transition. It's right where my foot goes from being a little flatter on the board, and watch, this leg's more bent, to all of a sudden, boom, this leg straightens out, all my weight transitions to that tail to slow me down. Here we are backside. I'm taking off. The wave right here is not super heavy, so I can throw my butt into it to stall. But then as soon as I do, it bottoms out. And so then I had to transition. Look at the transition. I go from being able to butt stall. While we're at it, I'm just gonna go ahead and say, I'm not diving super deep into backside tube riding here. Jamie O'Brien did a tutorial video specifically on backside barrel riding. So if you have any questions and you want to see better examples specifically on how to butt stall to get into this position and ride the tube on your backhand, I'd suggest hitting the link in the description. Go over and check out his video. He did a pretty good job. He, hopped on a catch surf and got into different positions and had one of his friends push him to show you how much stronger those different positions are. And he showed you how to properly lay your leg out there and do a butt stall. So I'm not going to touch on all that here. I'd head over there to give it a look if you need to. So I go from the butt stall and then I realize I need to get moving. So I transition back to that one technique we talked about for the heavy tubes. And as I drive through it, the foam ball hits me. And then as I'm coming out, it gets high and tight again. So that's where you see me leaning all my weight on my inside rail, way up the face and pulling hard with my hand to get me up here. Now the wave got real small and hit me, but if I would have stayed, like here I am up here, if I would have stayed down here where I started, I would have just ridden into this lip. So I had to take it and I had to go from down here and pull up and lean my weight up. So that wave I pretty much applied every technique we've talked about. So the key to transitioning in these barrel situations is being able to master, how to ride high and tight and keeping your shoulders to the face of the wave, whether backside or front side, and how to ride a heavy wave and ride on your toes, on the tail, on the rail, and being able to transition between those two. But now that we wrap that up, let's take a look at some highlights where I put it into practice. Now, a couple last things to touch up on before I let you guys go. The first thing, which is one of the most important things for trying to get a deep tube, is managing the foam ball. I'm not going to go super in depth about it because it just is a balancing act and luck sometimes, but I'll show you guys a couple examples so you see what I'm talking about and how I prepare for it. So here I am front side stalling into this tube. As I'm coming into it, I know that this part's going to bottom out, and so I'm leaning back on my tail. And right here, you can see I did a little pump. My nose is here. I do a pump up to get a little further up the face, and I hold that because the last thing I want to do is pump over it. So as I'm getting close to it, I do one more pull up right here, right there. And as I'm pulling up, I'm coming up the face as the foam ball is hitting me. I kept my nose up by leaning back so that when the foam ball hit me, it went under the board. And then at this point, it's just a balancing act and hope, because every foam ball is different. They're all super wild and you never know what's going to happen. But basically, you want to know what section you're going into. If you're going into a heavier section, you need to be prepared for that. This one, I was coming out and it was less heavy. So you see my front arm coming around to go into that position we talked about where you can hold your line through less heavy barrels. And then I was out. Like I said, it's a balancing act. Front side, your feet, you kind of want your weight completely over your board and you're just kind of holding on because as you hit it, it's just gonna try and buck you. And even when you have it completely dialed, so many times I think I've got it and then my fins slide out or it just, flips the board and it is what it is. You wipe out. That's just part of it. On top of all that, hold your line right before the lip starts to break, and as soon as it does, get one last little pump, just so you're a little higher. You don't want to pump too soon because then you'll come down the face into the foam ball. So you want, as that foam ball is shooting up, to get that little pump above it, and that'll help you out. Now backside's different, you're holding on, and that's a benefit. This one, the foam ball doesn't come super hard up on me, but you can see it hitting right here, and it shoots up under my nose. But anyway, you want to keep your weight centered. You don't want to be leaning too much because then it'll cause the board to slide out, and you don't want to be over your toes at all because then you'll flip. So it's basically just like riding a heavy barrel, whether it's high and tight or not. You got to keep your weight centered over it, so as the foam ball hits you and your nose is up, you can glide over it. And then, like I said, as you come out of that, you want to be prepared. Like, is the section heavy or is it going higher and tight? So that as soon as your fins re-engage after the foam ball, you're making that adjustment one way or the other. On this one, the foam ball came up under me. It gave me a little bit of a speed boost. As I held on, it pushed me way up tight in the top of the wave. And then that actually helped because I had to doggy door this one. And I was able to get a little extra speed from that to make it through. Now, the last things I want to talk about are boards and fins. You want stiffer fins. You don't want, something real flexy. Some flex is okay. A lot of guys in real big barrels will use strictly fiberglass fins. I ride Futures and I ride the John Florence fins, size medium, whether it's big pipeline or small Hatteras. It's my go-to fin for everything, and they hold really well. Now, as far as thrusters and quads, that is completely personal preference. I know people that only ride quads and barrels. I'm someone that only rides thrusters, period. I've used quads and I liked them in some instances, but just for the way I surf, I never really felt that comfortable on them. So that's going to be about what you like and how you surf, and it's going to be different for everyone. There's no right or wrong there. And as far as boards go, pintails. I don't care if it's head high, foot over head. If it's barreling good, ride a pintail. That's what boards like the Pig Dog Pro are for. It has a tail that's shaped more like a 6'2" or a 6'4". You don't want something that's got a wide tail or thick rails, because the rails aren't going to knife into the face of the wave. And the tail is going to just slide out. The bigger the tail, the more chance it is to slide out. So you want something streamlined for going down that line, tight in the pocket, and giving you tons of control. And then once the waves get bigger and I ride a step up, I'll do 6'4", 6'6", 6'8". They're all the same width and thickness as my shortboards. They're just longer. But riding a board that's meant for barrels is crucial. You just don't want to be on the wrong craft. You don't want to miss the best barrel of the day, or maybe the best barrel of your life, because you didn't pick the right board. Well, guys, I think that about wraps it up. I will say something I didn't touch on the last video, and I will hit at this point, is that never surf beyond your ability. Know your limits, know your skill level, and what you can accomplish. The last thing you want to do is go try and backdoor some peak, and you're way too deep, and you ruin someone else's wave because they could have caught it, and you wipe out and you break your board. Tons of consequences for making wrong decisions. I've blown plenty of waves by being too deep and not letting someone else go, and I always regret it. So just don't be greedy, be smart, pick waves you have a good percentage of making. But I appreciate all you guys tuning in. I really hope that this helps you guys between the last video of late takeoffs and now seeing how to ride different types of barrels. Hopefully you've got it figured out and you can go out there and make some. Even when you do become a really good barrel rider, you don't just show up to a wave you've never surfed before and kill it because you know how to ride a barrel. You still have to learn that wave. That's a big part of it, is reading the wave. No matter what everyone tells you and what you learn and what you analyze and what you study and figure out or think you figure out, a lot of barrel riding is just understanding how the wave breaks, being able to read it and getting it dialed. Being able to just tube ride at your local break and then go somewhere else, it's not going to translate. It's going to be a learning process all over again. But it's a fun learning process. So let's get to it. I'm going to head out. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next week.